So the reason I'm here today is because I want to talk a bit about my experience in learning R and in developing my first package, GAnalytics. And really I just want to sort of talk to two different audiences as well, people that are in the web analytics space and those in the R community, and trying to sort of get a bit of an overlap happening. I reckon there's a lot of good synergy there and a lot that web analysts can learn from R. Okay. All right, well, before I probably get into it, I just guess I want to get a bit of a feel of who's out there in the audience. I suppose, first of all, who here is familiar with R and uses it on a daily basis or at least once a week? Okay, great. And who here would say that they are pretty new to R and they're still learning? Okay, oh, that's good. What about anyone who has ever done anything to do with web analytics? All right, so there's a few there. And anyone who uses Google Analytics? Okay, yep, oh, that's good, that's good. All right, so we've got quite a diverse audience here. So I guess, as I was saying, really the purpose of this presentation is to try and encourage people who do web analytics to move away from using Excel and to move into the R world. Now, I suppose a lot of the R users out here would be absolutely astonished to hear that people in the web analytics space are using Excel, but it is true, and it is quite broad. It's like there's people from all over the world. It's a large number of people, a large proportion of them are using Excel on a daily basis for their analysis. You'd think with web data you'd probably want to use something designed better for more complex data and larger data sets, but that's the case. All right, and the other thing I want to do is I want to encourage those people that are learning R, you know, including those that are in the web analytics space and just using Excel and are thinking, well, maybe I should be using something better than that. Well, you know, I want to try and help those in that learning process by talking a bit about my experience. And also I want to talk to those in the R community to encourage development of packages to support people in the web analytics area, and for people to get involved in package development generally. Okay. So first of all, I'll just cover a bit about what web analytics is, and then I'm going to talk a bit about Google Analytics, and then I'm going to talk a bit about R, and then I'm going to bring it all together, and then I'm going to give you a demo. So just to talk a bit about what web analytics is, well, web analytics is about the measurement and the analysis of internet-type data that's used to make improvements to the usage of websites. So I suppose it's a bit of a general kind of definition, and there's many other definitions out there. Personally, as someone who comes from a usability background, I see web analytics as an excellent tool for being able to make decisions about how to make improvements to the usability of websites. And if you look more broadly across digital analytics, which web analytics is part of, web analytics is also, and this type of analysis is also going to help you with driving improvements to your marketing campaigns online as well. There's a lot of data. So I'm just going to talk a bit about the data. Now I hope everyone can see the slides okay. Right. So a lot of you might have heard of hits before. That's a word that's kind of thrown around a lot. And particularly by people who might not know too much about what web analytics is, and they ask you, can you tell me the number of hits that we've received? Well, okay. So what we have to do is sort of understand the structure of the data that is collected by products like Google Analytics and other web analytics platforms. And really it starts from the user. And you can think of, say, in this example, we've got two users, and they might have one or more devices that they use to access your website or whatever type of web application you have. And on each of those devices, they'll make a number of visits to your website. And each one of those visits we call a session. And those sessions may have originated from a traffic source, like, for example, Google, some campaign, a banner, or some other source of traffic to your website. During each of those sessions, the user will make a number of interactions with your website. Could be one or many, and those interactions could include things like viewing a page, clicking a button, playing a video, scrolling down the page, a whole lot of different things that you might want to measure. So it's really about the interactions with the user. So I guess that gives you a bit of an idea as to how it's all structured. Now, in Web Analytics, there's two types of data. There's dimensions and metrics. Now, I guess a lot of people would understand a bit about this, but dimensions are what we use to break down our metrics by. So in digital analytics and web analytics, metrics are generally aggregated stats. So we're looking at, say, total number of visits, or the average time spent on site, or the bounce rate, or number of page views, and so on. So if we want to try and break down those metrics, say we want to know number of page views across different sections of our website, or if we want to know number of visits that we've received from different traffic sources, that's when we start to include dimensions into our data, and so that we're able to split that out. So this gives you an example of what that would look like if you were to export data from, say, Google Analytics, which has a number of metrics, and those metrics have been split by two different dimensions there. Okay, so just to give you some examples of the different types of metrics and dimensions that are possible through Web Analytics, this is just to cover a few. Okay, so what we have there is, as I was saying, we're looking at things like the URL of a page, the different traffic sources, even the types of browsers and the operating systems that people use. And we can even add our own dimensions as well, like if we wanted to say whether someone who is visiting our website is an existing customer or not. So that way we can split all our reports by those that are existing customers versus those that aren't. So those are different types of dimensions. And then with metrics, as I was mentioning, there's things like time on site, the total number of users, the number of devices on average per user, and so on. In Google Analytics, which I'm going to be covering during the rest of this talk, there are 265 different dimensions and metrics, and that number just continues to grow. And they start to now having to try to categorize all of these, so it's a bit more manageable from a user's perspective to be able to find the dimension and metric that you need. And so I'll just sort of talk a bit about Google Analytics. So Google Analytics is the most popular web analytics platform on the market. There's a free and a paid version of it. And as you can see from this chart here, it's used even by some of the most wealthiest companies in the world, in addition to other technologies as well. And it's expanding. Google Analytics is moving away from just being a web analytics platform to becoming more of a sort of universal sort of business intelligence sort of platform in a way, where we can bring data in from multiple sources and analyze it within the one system. So I think that's probably where it's heading, and I think there's a lot of exciting things coming out in the near future. And I think what we'll see is those 265 different dimensions and metrics will just exponentially go up. So it's going to be interesting times. With Google Analytics, there's a number of ways that you can programmatically get data into Google Analytics and get data out. And one of those ways is through the core reporting API, which I'm going to be discussing in more detail. Now, the core reporting API is for accessing the data in your reports from Google Analytics. So putting that to side, now we're just going to talk a bit about R, and then we're going to try and bring all of this together. So bear with me. Hopefully you keep all of this in your mind. Okay, as you're probably all aware, R is free, open source, and it's very popular. And we can see here that that it's probably probably the most popular data analysis tool used by professional data analysts. Now, if we compare that to, say, using Excel, Excel is quite rigid and it's quite fragile. If you use Excel every day, you probably get frustrated a lot with things like formulas breaking easily when you insert some new data and then forgetting about some other change over here. And it can be quite difficult to keep track if you've got quite a complex spreadsheet set up. So it's not really the way to go when you're analysing large amounts of data and you're trying to analyse all of the connections between different data sets and so on. It's not good, especially not good for automation. Whereas R is great for all of that type of stuff because it's a programming language. It means it's agile. You can make changes very easily, and it's robust. So because of the fact that you've got all your code there and you're able to go through and understand exactly what's happening and make changes as necessary and being able to easily debug what you've done. So I guess to sort of summarise those points that I've just made about the benefits of using R instead of Excel. So I mean, we're talking about being able to capture all of the steps in your analyses. As you write your script in R, all of the steps that you take, and even through the history that's kept in R as well, and through RStudio, you can see all the steps that you've taken and find where you've made a mistake if you need to go back and make some changes. And because it's all captured, it means it's easy to reproduce your analyses and to reuse them in the future for other analyses that you might want to do, rather than having to reinvent the same steps again every time. And being able to join data from multiple sources. I mean, R has so many packages available for bringing data from everywhere, and it all can come together into the one place. And so that just makes it an amazing tool for that purpose. And with all of the great packages out there for manipulating and transforming the data, it makes it even easier to join and to be able to process and analyse that data. And there's great visualization tools as well. And again, because it's a programming language, it means that you're able to automate the retrieval of your data very easily. Say for example, automating the retrieval of data from Google Analytics core reporting API, which I'm going to be talking about. So all of that adds up to saving you time. Now, I suppose a lot of you would already know all about that because you are programmers, but for those those web analysts that are using Excel, I just wanted to make that point really clear. All right. So now I just want to talk a bit about learning R. Now, so I know a lot of you are still in that process of learning R, and I want to reflect a bit about on my experience. Now, I've been using R for 2 years now, and I can remember what it was like when I first installed R, and I loaded R, and I saw the main console with the welcome screen, and at that point I really felt like maybe I should just go and have some chocolate and come back later. I didn't know what to do. I felt lost, and as someone who doesn't do programming a lot, and hadn't done programming for quite some time, it was a little bit daunting, but with some perseverance and determination, I was able to get help. And I just wanted to talk a bit about some of the resources that are out there that have helped me, and I think would help a lot of you as well if you're learning. And even those that are experts too, I'd say a lot of these resources are great. So first of all, I don't know if Eugene is here, is he? No? Okay. Johann De Boer from Prescient, I had training with him, which was excellent. Taught me about data manipulation and visualization. Now, there's also the R podcast. I don't know if they're keeping it up to date now, but there's available a number of episodes of our podcast which take you right through a whole journey and from the beginning to doing some package development even. So if you get an opportunity, have a listen to those podcasts if you want to go through those stages. And on Twitter, follow the RStats hashtag, it's great. There's videos available on YouTube by Google. They've recently released some great YouTube videos that introduce you to R. Coursera, there's a number of courses on there, and I've done both the Computing for Data Analysis and Data Analysis course, and they were excellent. You'll be able to learn a lot about the fundamentals of R and applying it to statistical analysis. Another book that I've read is R in a Nutshell. Really, it's quite a reference book, and it's, I suppose, quite succinct and to the point. Good way to quickly understand I guess the foundations of the language. Try R if you want to have an interactive way of using a simulated programming environment, R environment, and getting feedback as you go. Yeah, there's quite a number of resources there. So I'll actually provide links to these. I'll put up a link on the links on the meetup page so you guys can all access that. Now, just to talk a bit about some of the tools that have helped me as well. Now, RStudio is fantastic. I'd highly recommend it for someone who's new to R. Maybe, I'm not sure if the advanced users would recommend it too, but I found it to be just amazing helping me in making R a lot more user-friendly. So go there, get RStudio. And a lot of the packages that I've been using in RStudio, most of these have been written by Hadley Wickham, including Blyer and ggplot, which I learned thanks to Eugene for data manipulation, and ggplot too for data visualization. And a number of these other packages are really helpful as well for analysis of web analytics data, such as Lubridate, which makes it easier to work with dates. And you work with a lot of data information when you're working with web analytics data, obviously. And then some of those ones later down the list there have been good for package development. So with interaction with Google Analytics APIs using HTTR, and in package development, using the dev tools for Oxygen 2, and Markdown is great for doing your reports as well, making them look really nice. So Git as well, version control. All right. So I just want to talk a bit about now, this is where I'm going to try and bring it all together, bring R, Google Analytics together, and talk about, well, how can we access Google Analytics data from within R? And there are currently 3 packages which I know that are available for doing that. The first one that I came across, I think it's been around the longest, is R Google Analytics, which was written mainly by some authors from Google themselves. Unfortunately, when Google made some changes to their core reporting API, the R Google Analytics package stopped working, and it took Google quite a long time before they got around to making some updates, and I still think they're actually in the process of making those updates. So I think that package is probably still got some way to go. There's RGA as well, which is another package which I think came out probably late last year, if I'm correct. And that one is working and is actively being developed. It's quite popular amongst those that are using Google Analytics data within R. And there's another one, and that's the package I created, called GAnalytics. I started development of GAnalytics before RGA was made available publicly. So that's probably why they're not kind of, the effort wasn't put together, but I think in time maybe it would be good to be able to put the, share the effort in maintaining those packages. With GAnalytics, it's a bit different to the others in the way it works. It provides you with a sort of an abstraction away from the API protocol. So in a way, it means that you can more focus on what you are wanting to get from Google Analytics rather than having to focus on the intricacies of how to use the API. That's my aim with the GAnalytics package. So I'll just talk a bit more about GAnalytics, the package I developed. Because of this sort of abstraction that it has away from the API protocol, it provides you with a number of benefits, and one of them is that you're able to create what I call a query object, and that query object you're able to manipulate as you go through the steps of your analysis, as opposed to having to reformulate the entire query that in the terms that's defined by the API protocol, which is probably a lot more difficult. So that's one of the benefits. Another benefit is in supporting you as a data analyst and being able to define or create your expressions that you use for querying Google Analytics. And I'll cover a bit more about what I mean by expressions shortly. Another benefit is it checks the queries before they're submitted to the API. There is a limit to a quota limit on queries, a daily limit. So you really want to try not to waste that quota if possible. So to put in some error checking before the queries put in will help with saving those queries. And in some instances, it will automatically correct the query as well. Such as making sure that if you misspell the name of or mistype the name of dimensional metric, in some instances will correct that. Great. Now, just to talk a bit about queries, so it's probably getting a little bit detailed here, but I'll try and be quick. So in Google Analytics, you use queries to say what data you want to have returned from the API. So whether it's saying what rows from the data set you want to have returned, or if you want to have the data being returned only about a certain segment of your audience. So there's two different ways of being able to use these query expressions. So with a query, it's a combination of the dimension or metric that you are wanting to set some kind of criteria for, followed by the operator that you want to use in comparing that dimensional metric against some operand. And that operand is like a value or a string that you're using to compare with. So you've got your variable, your operand, and your operator, which is used to do the comparison. So these expressions, single expressions, can be combined using and or logic. Now there are limitations as to how you can use and or with the Google Analytics Core Reporting API. So what I've decided to do with this package is to make it so that those limitations are in a way not enforced sort of strictly in a way. Like how would I say, you're able to, if you try to break it, it will try to correct it. So, or if you try to do something that isn't allowed, it will tell you before you submit the query to Google Analytics. So here's an example where if you were to express a query, actually maybe I'll just go back to the previous slide just to explain it more clearly. So as you can see in the large text at the top there, we have GA colon keyword @ equals by. Now what that means in Google Analytics API protocol speak is keyword contains the characters BUY as a string. Okay, so we want to be able to have a bit more of an easier way of expressing that, especially when you start to combine these expressions using and or. So in the API protocol speak, an or is represented by a comma, which I've highlighted there in purple or violet, and is represented by a semicolon. So what you have there is quite a complex string of text that if you have to really make sure you understand the API protocol to make sure you don't incorrectly type this. You need to get it right, otherwise you'll just get an error returned to you from the API and it won't tell you exactly where you went wrong. And it can be sometimes difficult to debug what went wrong, right? So that's where I tried to, with this package, I tried to aim to make it so that those expressions will be checked. You'll formulate your expressions using functions that are provided by the package. And that way, you're not going to be creating expressions that are invalid. So there's a number of functions provided by the GAnalytics package for formulating your query expressions. The basic one is GA expression or GAexpr, which is where you say what my dimension or metric is, the operator and the operand. And then you use the GAand and GA-or functions to combine those expressions together. And then, okay, that makes it an expression which you can then pass to the API and it will be automatically handled for you. So I'm going to give you a bit of a demo of GAnalytics. Just get this up on the screen. Just bear with me for a second. Okay, so I've got Studio up on the screen here, and this is a new session. There's nothing in my workspace at the moment, and hopefully I've got my internet connection still, which is fantastic. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to load the GAnalytics library package, into my library from my library. So that's loaded. And I'm also, this demonstration is also going to use the apply and ggplot2 packages. Actually, what I probably didn't explain is what this demonstration is aiming to do. Okay, I'll just quickly explain that. So this demonstration is aiming to answer this question. So how does traffic from desktop, mobile and tablet users change throughout the day and over the week? So this is probably a sort of quite a basic example of what you can do with Google Analytics, and it's a great sort of example of where you can bring all that data into R and visualize it. So what we're really going to be asking Google Analytics is what's the average number of visits per hour and day of the week, and we're going to split that by desktop, mobile and tablet users. So I'm going to take data for approximately a year, round it off to the nearest week, and then we're going to take an averages over all of those weeks. Okay. So now up to the line here where I'm creating my query object, and I've specified what profile which I want to get the data from. So Google Analytics holds all of the data that's been collected in profiles. So we're selecting it from this particular profile, and then we're going to set the date range. Now by default, the query object has a default start and end date, and default metric and dimension and all of that. So I mean, right now I could actually go and execute the query and it will give me back some data. So it doesn't take that much code to be able to start to actually get data from the reporting API using GAnalytics. But before this demonstration, we're going to set the query up properly so we get the data that we need. So we set the date range there, and so the default end date is yesterday. And so what we're doing there is we're setting the start date to being 335 days before, which gives me I think approximately 12 times 4 weeks of data. So that's good. And the API only returns 10,000 rows of data by default, but we want it. You can't actually exceed that per query. You have to paginate your results and then can join them together. So that's a function which has been built into the package to automatically paginate and join and to bind all of those tables of data. So we'll request 4,000 rows of data. That should cover it. And we want to know number of visits. That's actually the default metric, so I didn't really need to say that, but we'll just put that in just to be explicit. And we want to get data for these dimensions. So we want to know day of week, the hour, whether it's a mobile, whether it's a tablet, and we want it split out by date throughout the entire year so that we can then start to take averages. Great. So now we're going to get the data. I haven't got any errors up there, have I? You guys can tell me if you see an error come up, okay? All right. So what it's doing now is it's sending a request to the GAnalytics, to the Google Analytics core reporting API, and it's going to paginate. It's determined that 2 pages of data will be required. So it's completed that. So we've got 2 pages of data. So let's have a look. We'll just look at the first 6 rows of data using the head function in R. And we can see there that we've got the date, day of week, hour, and we've got Boolean values for whether it's mobile or tablet, and number of visits is our metric. Now we want to do a bit of cleaning up because the way that Google have defined is mobile, the dimension is mobile, it actually also includes tablet. That's for historical reasons. And then they created a new dimension called is tablet. And so we want to really kind of just have one dimension which says, is this a desktop, tablet, or mobile visitor? So what we're going to do is we're going to use R's factor function, and we're going to take, we're going to create a new, so we're going to create a new dimension called device, and we're simply just going to add the 2 Boolean values together, so we get a value of 0, 1, or 2. And 0 represents desktop, 1 represents mobile, and 2 represents tablet, if you were to add up the different Boolean values. You can work that out if you want later. So what we're going to do is now we're going to translate those integers into a factor using these labels, desktop, mobile, and tablet. So I've done that. So we have a look at the data now. We can see that we have what we had before, except we've got an additional column at the end, which is the device, corresponding to what type of device was used by that set of visitors on that particular day. So what we want to do now is we want to take the average for each combination of hour, day of week, and device. So we're going to take the mean, we're going to calculate the mean, and we're going to create a new data table, data frame. And we're using the ddply function from the ply package to do this. Great, so that's been done. Now we can have a look at the results for that. So now we have a simple table, which is the hour of the day of the week, the device, and average number of visitors. But we want to relabel for the weekdays. Instead of being 0 through to 6, we're going to label them Sunday through to Saturday as an ordered factor. So we'll do that. And then due to the data that I'm using, there's a bit of noise, so I'm just going to remove some outliers. So I did this before, so I know what those outliers are, so that's okay, don't worry. And now we're going to have a look at the output that we've got here. So we can see we've got what we had before, except now the day of week column has been transformed into a factor, representing the day of week instead of a numerical number. Okay, we're going to plot this data now using the qplot function from the ggplot2 package. And we'll have a look at the plot that we've got. Okay, let's wait for that to render. We'll zoom in. Okay, so there you go. We can see here for each day of the week there's a facet. We've plotted for each device being a different colour, a stacked area plot, and where we've got the hour of the day going across the horizontal axis and average number of visits going on the vertical axis. Okay. So from that demonstration, I've been able to show you how the GAnalytics package works and how you can use it with other packages available in R, available for R, to be able to manipulate that data, clean it up, and to visualize it. So that's pretty much what I summarised here. I've used R and together with ggplot2, Fly, and GAnalytics to create that visualization. So now I'm going to talk a bit about getting involved, right? So there's, I know a lot of you are probably interested in package development in our community, and and I think the Web Analytics community can really benefit from your efforts in getting involved in doing that, and and looking at working on packages like GAnalytics and other open source packages like RGA and so on. And try and build up a larger suite of packages. I mean, like there's the Twitter R package as well, which I think would be great, that we can continue to develop. So I'd like to encourage you all to get into that. So I'm going to talk a bit about some of the things that I've learned in developing GAnalytics. Now, just again, I'm still new to this, and this was the first package that I started developing. It hasn't been released to CRAN yet. This is just available on GitHub, in the GitHub community. I hope to release it to CRAN one day, and I want to make sure that it's all properly working exactly as we need, and that it's been checked over by other people as well before we do that. But yeah, just some of the things that I recommend to help you with package development are using RStudio together with Git version control, and that's great because RStudio integrates really well with Git, and Git is what they use on GitHub, and GitHub's like really quite popular open source community as well. So it's a great place to get involved in package development and to actually get some package out there and used by others in the community. And RStudio also has support for Oxygen too, which really helps you with your documentation and setting the namespace file on your package. So there's a lot of great uses for RStudio. Now, I also recommend checking out Hadley Wickham's book, Advanced Programming. He has a really good chapter on package development, which has really helped me. I pretty much followed it from start to finish and taking me through the process of building the GAnalytics package. And I probably should go through it again just to kind of make some refinements. Hadley has also made available a really good package that's for package development called DevTools, and that makes the installation process of packages on GitHub very easy. So just to finish off, if you want to learn more about anything that I've talked about, I'd follow the GAnalytics hashtag on Twitter if you want to learn about Google Analytics. And there's also great videos about Google Analytics at these links, and I'll send this through to everyone on the meetup group so you can all get access to those links. And if you want to get involved in the use of the API, there's a reference guide there. And with R, follow the r/# hashtag if you're not already. I recommend getting in contact with Prescient if you want to get some good hands-on training with them. And Code School is another really good way to, as I was saying before, to have an interactive way of learning R, Coursera as well, and intro to R videos from Google. And if you want to learn about package development, there's a link there to Hadley Wickham's Advanced R Programming book, and a link here to the GAnalytics package that I built on GitHub. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, my handle is @UX. So thank you very much, everybody. I'm happy to take questions. If you want to put your hand up, I just have to say I've got very poor eyesight, so you might have to call out. So, and I probably won't see your hand, so just shout out. Yeah.
Is there any videos that shows how to use the existing package like GAnalytics? Because for someone like who is new to R, probably will start by using the existing package, you know, to stuff that you just showed. Because where I'm working, we're using Google Analytics, so there's something that allow me how I can use this stuff.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I haven't actually come across any how-to videos about these packages yet. I'd certainly be interested in helping sort of put something together if someone wants to contribute to that as well. And you know, I think possibly even if the recording from this is any help to others, and that can probably get made available on YouTube as well. So yeah, but it's a good idea. If anyone knows of anything like that, just yeah, maybe just put a message on the meetup group, share that with everyone. Thanks. Yeah. Any other questions?
Have you ever had a look into developing a package for the AdWords API?
No, I haven't developed one for the AdWords API. But I think what I've noticed with Google's APIs is that there's a bit of a sort of a common theme through them. So it could be maybe relatively not too difficult, I suppose, to adapt existing APIs, package APIs, and for that one, yeah. Oh yeah, I think I see a hand up in the back there.
How pervasive is R in the web analytics area? Like, I've seen everyone use Excel.
Yeah.
But I'm not a person that I'm not involved in a daily basis of web analytics, but I use R.
Yeah.
How pervasive is R? And is it growing?
It is growing from what I've seen, but that's just from my own sort of observation, I suppose. It's not. I don't have any hard facts about that, but you know, you can kind of see it in on Twitter. You know, the what people are tweeting about, and the packages that have recently come out, you know, for Google Analytics. You know, I think, you know, a few years ago you might not have come across any of these packages, but you know, that could be just the growth and popularity of R, I suppose. But also, I do know that organisations like Google, Facebook, they use R internally, and I know even in the Google Analytics team at Google, so I've spoken to one of the managers from there. He told me that they actually use R in their analytics team as well. So, and I know there's an organisation certainly that does web analytics that's also using R and these, and I believe they're using the GA package as well, and Rob over here, I know he does. So I think it's growing in popularity, and that's a great thing. And you know, I totally agree. There's probably too many in the web analytics community that are just too much relying on Excel for their analysis, and I think for me that Excel was not adequate. It wasn't. It was too time consuming and too frustrating. So it's probably what drove me away from Excel itself, and it drove me towards looking for a better solution. And R seems to be the one, I think, for me.
So, yeah, Johann, so do you have colleagues that use Excel, and how do you work with those guys?
Yeah, hopefully some of them are here. I think maybe not, but I try to persuade them as much as I can, and I've been running internal training sessions on R as well to try and get them to become confident in using R. I think we have a long way to go. We're right at the start, really, you know, and I think one of the reasons is that R, to learn R it is a bit of a steep learning curve at the start. But you know, I think if you know, there's some of those resources that I mentioned, I think will really help some people. I think it's good to learn from others that have been through that process. Yeah. I'm happy to take a question. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I couldn't make the question. R and Python. Yeah, no, I haven't actually got into Python yet, but I think that's going to be the next programming language for me to learn, other than those that I use within the web development space. But yeah, no, I think that's looking like a very gaining a lot of popularity and it's very heavily used in data analysis. And I think Google actually have developed libraries for Python for accessing Google Analytics data. So, you know, it's a great way to leverage off the work that I've done already. So I think Python is a good way to go. Yeah. Okay, any other? Yep.
You found in your organisation the resistance to free software in the higher management levels? Because certainly where I come from, they're very focused on paying companies who write software
Yeah.
that can never be supported.
Look, yeah, I can't really speak about our organisation specifically, but you know, I think I can understand where you're coming from, and I think some organisations probably do have that view, you know, but I think there's probably other reasons as well, or why people might go for paid solutions as well. There's a lot of different factors that come into the picture. But you know, I think that a lot of organisations are really, sort of welcoming the idea of open source, and they're really, getting into it now. So you know, I think that's not that won't be a problem for much longer for most organisations, I hope.
Can I just make a comment on that question? Because I know there's some challenge. More and more vendors, just even in the last 12 months, when they come to Telstra and they're touting their commercial software, you see more and more of the R logo, their SaaS is now linked with there's R Enterprise. So even though it is a open source, the wave of popularity and the people coming out of university that know it, it's now, that gives it kind of a stamp of, well, if these guys, are promoting it and using it, then it must be okay. So I've seen quite a shift just in recent times.
Yeah, actually, I agree. I've seen that.
Can I add to that? Because I do a course for postgraduates at Swinburne, and they're useless. I mean, you've got PhD students that are trying to learn art and freak out. I want to go back to SPSS because it's a drop-down, simple. These are not maths and stats students. These are usually humanities. But I'm finding an absolute resistance to using and getting involved in art, and have been told that the universities are probably going to switch over to art because it's free. But still, the resistance is strong.
Yeah, well, look, the R is kind of sort of the foundation, if you can think about like what possible ways there are to use R. That's what I'm trying to look at. Like there are sort of IDEs or sort of GUI interfaces that you can get and packages, I suppose, that kind of extend R to become something that more like SPSS, I suppose. I haven't used SPSS before, but I have come across GUIs for R that provide you with a sort of a similar environment as to what you would be familiar with SPSS. So I think that those types of issues can be addressed. So to learn R, I suppose there's different ways that you could, depending on how you want to use R, you might want to learn it differently. So you might not want to get involved in the programming if you are able to use a GUI interface that is, making you have access to R's functionality without having to be too concerned about how to program R. So I suppose there is that way of addressing that. I mean, there's probably a lot of tools out there which are using R, and you probably don't realise that you're using R. So, okay, I don't know if I made myself clear on that, but is there any other questions?
Yep.
Yeah.
How do end users consume the R end product?
Oh, like the report at the
Yeah.
end and the visualizations?
Yep.
Yeah, that's an area that I'm working on more to get better at. But so one thing I mentioned before was Markdown, and That's something I've done a few times where you're able to like sort of documentate your analysis and and all the output into a single sort of I suppose file, and then you're able to compile it into like an HTML document, and then you're able to share that HTML document with others. So that's one way to go about it. There's also, in our studio, you're able to export your visualizations in different graphic formats. So you can export it as PDF and so on. So I mean, there's also ways of being able to exchange data from R with other tools that you might traditionally use. For presenting the data. So yeah, there's lots of ways of being able to get that information out. But it's an area that I'm looking at working on more, is how to start to build some automated reports that people can have evaluated on the fly, on demand. Yeah.
Is it scheduled? Like, can you schedule the package to, for example, if you're doing the Google Analytics, it can be scheduled, or you have to?
I think that would certainly be possible, but that's not something I've done yet. I hope to look into that. So yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, I'm sure that it's possible. Is there anyone else that's doing that at the moment with scheduling reports? Yep, there you go. So maybe get in contact and on the meetup and exchange some ideas on how to do that. Okay, yeah. All right. Well, I suppose that might be about. Oh, one more question, is it?
I've been working on a couple of enclosing with data with Splunk, which is much more real-time focused, constantly updated, sort of see the data decomposed.
Yeah. Yeah,
I wonder where you've got your limits on how many queries you can run a day.
Yeah.
How easily you can just give me the latest bit to add on to the stats I've already got and combine it exactly what you've taken. But you've got the thing where you rate, you have the thing where you second
yeah.
Can you take your existing data and add in an extract and sort of simulate?
Yeah, well, I think that would be a great idea to add that functionality to the package, to be able to sort of keep a cache of queries, I suppose, in the output. That would be excellent. I think that would help a lot with reducing having to make new queries and having to worry about that quota that is enforced. But I haven't used Splunk, but from my understanding is it analyzes server logs, and there is a bit of a differentiation between the way that Google Analytics collects its data versus how the types of data you might see from server logs. In the way that you're able to analyze that and so on. I think that's an area I'd like to look into more. But yeah, they are quite. There is some differences. I think that that you probably can't solely rely on one. You might need to sort of complement Splunk data with sort of data that's collected through the client side, like how Google Analytics works, and perhaps vice versa as well. I think there's a lot of data that's available at the server side, which is probably useful to have within a web analytics platform as well. As for the limitations that are imposed by the API, there are ways of overcoming all of that, and if you're prepared to pay the money, you can upgrade to the premium edition of Google Analytics, where there is available, I suppose, a way of being able to extract the raw data or the transactional hit level data from Google Analytics using Google's BigQuery API. I haven't really used that myself, but so I know that there are ways that Google have provided to overcome those limitations. But in the time that in my use of the Google Analytics API, the query limit has never been an issue for me. All right. Okay, I think I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation, and I hope that you've all been able to get something Right.
Yeah.